Hi everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how I created this super easy landscape as part of my watercolour landscape painting series. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you check out the rest of the tutorials that I have that all base around painting Japan. I'm going to jump straight into the tutorial. Don't forget to like, subscribe and let me know what you think to this painting down below in the comments. To begin with, we're going to want to map in the mountain, and to do this I pre-mixed two colours, a really light blue and I watered it down, adding of course lots of water to this, and then I created a nice grey mixing blue, brown and then lots of white. As you can see, I've got a lot in the palette there ready to go, and the trick for this particular part of the painting is focusing on each mountain, not going in and treating everything as a whole, because you can see the individual mountains. So to go in one at a time is going to make this so much easier. And I started with the blue because there was actually so much blue to add to these mountains, which isn't usual. Normally you'd have more of the muted colours, for example the grey, but there was so much blue going on, it was really nice to be able to get that in to begin with. And then I went in a section at a time, adding the grey over the top, as you don't want the blue to dry before going in with the grey, as you do want them to merge together slightly. I'm just working my way across from right to left. You can do it the opposite way round, especially if you're right-handed. I did mine this way because I'm left-handed to prevent any smudging. And all of the lines, you should notice they move towards the top point of each mountain, and this is really crucial for this painting as there are so many different mountains to paint in, and these lines are going to help with the distinction between each one because of the way that they move. It's also quite dark at the bottom, so I added that little bit more grey, dotting that in, but as long as you get the rigid lines in, you will be able to tell that it is a mountain. It can be quite difficult to get them in thin, but I'd recommend scraping off the excess paint. That should usually help to do that, or you can practice on a piece of scrap paper until you get your lines right. But this is actually a really good way to practice controlling the paint, which can be quite difficult with watercolour, so just be patient and kind with yourself when creating these mountains. Also following the reference photo to see where the lines move. Like I say, they are generally moving towards the point of each mountain, but there are a few more details. It's not all going to be the exact same, so the reference photo is going to really help with that as well. Once you're happy with how all of these mountains look, you can go back in with just the grey to really darken up a few of these lines. And what we're doing with this is adding extra layers, so it's not going to all be the same shade. You're now going in and adding the darker sections, and this is going to really make everything pop that little bit more, bring it to life, which is what you really want for this particular painting. The mountains are definitely where your eye is drawn towards, so having that darker colour is going to help really bring them to life. You can find the full hour-long tutorial over on my Patreon. I also have a variety of different tiers. For my smallest tier, you can access the reference photo and two outlines, one for printing and painting straight onto, and one for printing and tracing yourself, ready to add the paint. I've got a variety of different options for you guys, so if this is something you'd be interested in, you can learn to paint so many different nature-themed art pieces using watercolour and also coloured pencils, so make sure you check that out. Jumping back to the painting now, I created a lime green mixing green and yellow, and then had yellow in a separate palette, and I used this to add the ground in section at a time, as it's very layered in terms of the different colours. Like one area for example is very green, and then above that you can have a little bit more yellow, and I used horizontal strokes mainly to get this down really evenly and blending that green and yellow together. Then I moved on to painting in the sky using the wet in wet method, so I added a layer of water down, making sure it's evenly spread, and you want to be really careful going around the mountains, as this is going to give it the definition and really make them stand out with the blue behind it. And then I went in with that baby blue and spread this across that whole section, again with horizontal strokes, making sure it's spread really evenly across that whole area. So now we want to create a really dark brown, mixing brown with blue, which is going to really deepen this. The blue is definitely essential if your brown is quite a warm brown, which mine is, so I added the blue to get the balance right and get it as deep and dark as possible. And we're going to use this colour to paint in the tree trunks and then a few of the branches, leaving a few little gaps, where the blossoms can come in between that, so just be conscious you don't want every single branch in there, as it will detract from the cherry blossoms and look a little bit silly. And you want to make sure you've got all of this mapped in before we add in the blossoms, as it needs a little bit of drying time so that the cherry blossoms don't become really muddy and dark. I also used the same colour to add in the trees in the background. The mountains definitely need to be dry for this though, as the colour will just bleed straight into that. And I'm just adding small dots, getting slightly wider at the bottom to replicate the silhouette of trees. I then created a nice baby pink. You can use whatever colour you want for the blossoms. I mixed pink with some white, so it was more of that peachy colour. But you can go in with pink and just add lots of water to lighten it. It will definitely be a different colour, but it'll be still pink. And I dotted this in to create the blossoms. You want to really take your time to get small dots in there, going from right to left again, so I can work on a tree at a time. I also added a little bit of grey to blend in there, so it wasn't just the peachy colour and then white. It gives it a little bit more dimension doing it this way. And you want to be careful to go around the branches instead of overlapping, so that you still have a couple of the branches creeping out. I think this looks really nice if you can avoid going over that and still have a couple of them showing really dark. It matches up to the tree trunk as well, so I think this is a really crucial step. And then it's just filling in the rest of the ground. I created a nice peachy orange, mixing orange and white and adding a layer of that down, some light grey, and it's blending all of these different layers of the ground together. So I went in with some really dark brown and then used some water to blend that into the grey and green either side of it. I also added a little bit of green behind the cherry blossoms so they didn't look too stand-out-ish. You've still got the green creeping through, as you would with the way that the leaves move. You should still be able to see some of the green in the background, so that was really important to get in there as well. And it's just them simple little touches that are going to help bring this piece to life. So taking your time to add in a couple of green dots and blending all of the ground together to finish. Once you're happy with how everything looks, then went in and blended all of my edges. So I added a layer of water down, edge at a time, and then went in with all of the colours that I'd used today and dotted this down, letting it bleed out. And this is a really good way to demonstrate the wet in wet method and how these colours all blend together and bleed out naturally, just adding a couple of dots down. And the effect really brings the piece to life and ties it all together. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial and painting alongside me today. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and don't forget you can ask me any questions down below in the comments. And I'll see you next time for another watercolour landscape tutorial. Bye guys!